Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to this evening's Kingsdale Foundation School UCAS information talk. It's very lovely to have you here, and I'd also like to introduce my very esteemed colleague, Mr. Ware, who will be speaking to you as well as myself this evening about many of the intricacies and finer parts of the UCAS, not only the UCAS application process, but also what is involved in applying for further education, apprenticeships, and conservatoire colleges and institutions once the fine young men and women in Year 12 in Kingsdale decide that they want to leave the school. So, as I said, very warm welcome, and it is lovely to have you with us this evening. So, if I could just run through a little bit of the format of the evening, we're going to be talking about primarily the UCAS process. Now, the UCAS process is how students will apply for universities and colleges and other such courses, and there are quite a lot of things to consider when it comes to this. So we will be taking you on a step-by-step process into how that works, and particular components that are important, such as the personal statement, the references, the predicted grades, and how you actually end up choosing a university is something that we're going to speak to you in depth about. Mr. Ware is going to speak about student finance, and also speak to you about aspects of the apprenticeship programs that are on offer, and also conservatoire and college applications. And as well as that, we'll look at, Mr. Ware will be looking at the options of studying abroad, and then finally we will look at the kind of what it is that you as parents can do to support your children in kind of the whole process as it starts from now and kind of moving forward over the next 6 to 8 months, because although these dates do seem quite far away, which you'll be learning about over the course of the evening, it does come about very, very quickly. So it is really important that you are all aware of how you can help. So without further ado, I will begin. If you do not know me, my name is Mr. Unwin. I am currently one of the directors of the school, acting director. I'm also head of lower sixth, and I'm sure that over the course of the next year you will be getting to know me much better as this process gathers momentum. So just a little bit about UCAS. UCAS stands for the University and College Admissions Service, and it is an independent charity. They do not have any affiliation with any particular university, but what they do is they process all the applications that students make towards universities and colleges. They do provide information, they provide training and advice, and they do have a very, very vigilant fraud and verification team, so you do not have to worry about, in terms of GDPR, the kind of the stringent processes they go through to avoid any such issues are very, very strict and vigilant. And they do take part in the educator sector engagement as well. And we do speak to UCAS as an independent body about how we can support our young men and women in terms of their applications. What it does not do, however, is it does not suggest courses or universities for students. It does not make any decisions or any offers that for students' applications, and it does not advise on finance or immigration or any such concerns that you may have. Over the course of the UK, there are over 350 universities and colleges which use UCAS as their kind of application provider. 4 in Northern Ireland, 15 in Wales, 19 in Scotland, 324 in England, and 1 in mainland Europe. And they provide over 35,000 courses to which one can apply. And in terms of what they are used for in terms of the applications, higher education, and that is degrees, looking at apprenticeships and traineeships, studying abroad, gap years, and actually getting a job. And any extra information that you want to find and want to use for supporting your children, then please do visit the website ucas.com, and I'll be going into a lot more detail later about how both students and parents can use ucas.com to support the application process. So it is something that we've been talking about a huge amount from the start of the year, and it's something that we like to instill in our students at Kingsdale, you know, a form of aspiration, and certainly getting them to think about what they want to do after their what ultimately is under 2 years at studying at sixth form, and it does go very, very quickly. And so we are keen to continue to have these conversations during tutor time and during assemblies. But why is it important that the consideration of higher education is something that is at the forefront of these young minds? Well, ultimately, the opportunities while studying are that they get the chance to study subjects that they are absolutely passionate about. They will achieve a qualification that could lead to a chosen career, and certainly confidence. They make lifelong friends, gain independence, life skills that will ultimately be used as transferable skills to therefore widen their prospects. And if you have a degree or equivalent, then they'll have the opportunity to follow that career path, get better job prospects, and just by way of some kind of information and statistics here, the average starting salary for somebody who has a degree is £22,000, or just under £23,000, compared to £14,000 just over for non-degree subjects, and that is obviously not exclusive, and we do appreciate the fact that you know, there are certain pathways that are more suited to one person than the other, but it's certainly, you know, going into higher education is certainly something that is a conversation that we regularly have, and something that we certainly encourage our students to consider. So the UCAS process, well, ultimately it's an online application. I remember when I applied to university, the online application was certainly in its infancy, and I think I was the second or third year out of it being a paper application. But you know, it's come on leaps and bounds in those 10-15 years, even more so, being generous to myself, since I made that application. But yeah, certainly it has come on leaps and bounds, and it's a really involved but also really informative process, and it's something that you will get to know very, very well over the coming months. The university choices, it's very simple. You will get a maximum of 5 choices. However, that is not the case when it comes to some of the restricted subjects or the restricted institutions. If you wish to apply for Oxford or Cambridge University, you will get you will only be allowed to apply for one of those institutions plus 4 others. If you wish to apply for medicine, veterinary medicine or dentistry, then you can only apply for 4 courses at 4 institutions. However, you will get the opportunity to add an extra application in a subject that is not included in that list to another institution, or one of the same institutions that you've applied for in that first instance. So do be very aware that there are limited but some course restrictions that we'd be happy to talk to you about over the course of the evening. Can I just add, apologies for not mentioning this earlier, we do have a Q&A function that Mr. Ware and I will be monitoring over the course of the evening, and we'll be trying to answer as many questions as we possibly can. And this is being recorded, so if any of your friends and colleagues are unable to join this evening, then there will be an opportunity for them to see this at a later date, so please tell them not to fret. The application costs. Well, there are 2 costs to consider. If you wish to only apply for one university or one institution, then there is a one-off cost of £20. If you wish to extend that to 2 or the maximum of 5 choices, then you will pay £26. There is equal consideration, and what that means is that no university will see any of the other institutions that you apply for. Previously, you will have had to have put them in order 1 to 5 or 1 to 6. However, now it is blind, so you will not have to worry about the fact that other universities get to see which you are applying for. Hence the invisibility bullet point below. So completing the UCAS application. First and foremost, you need to visit ucas.com/apply, and there are several sections that you will need to complete. As with any application form, you will need to look at the personal details, any additional information which may enhance your application or inform the universities of any particular needs that you may have. You will then look at student finance, whether or not you intend to get a student loan. And then it's your choices. Now, we just alluded to the fact that you get 5 choices, and we'll go over the importance of the choices and which universities you end up choosing in terms of how it suits you a little bit later. You then look at your education, so that's what schools you've been to and what qualifications you currently have, any jobs that you may have, and then it comes to arguably the 2 most important sections, other than obviously the qualifications and education section, the personal statement and your reference, which will 9 times out of 10 come from the school. Now, what I would like to add at this point is that when you create your own UCAS application form on the website that you can see there, you will be offered, given the opportunity to link it to a particular centre. Now, we obviously, as a school, we are a UCAS centre, and you are asked to give the buzzword. Now, the buzzword in this situation is Kingsdale, case sensitive Kingsdale 22. So please make sure that when you do start your application and you do log on and you do start completing the sections and register, please make sure that you link your application with the school. If you do not, then we will not see your application, and so therefore it will be very difficult for us to give you a reference. So please make sure that you do that. References will generally come from your tutors, your teachers, and the pastoral management team at the sixth form, which it has been the system that we've used for a very long time. And once everything is complete and it's all signed off, your applications are sent to UCAS and then distributed to the colleges and universities that you've applied for, and they will then make your choices. The decisions will come back to you via UCAS through those institutions. So I'm now going to spend a little bit of time talking about the personal statement. And this, as I said to you earlier, is arguably one of the most important parts. This is the opportunity for the student to sell themselves. It's the only section that they have complete control over. They market themselves, they sell themselves, and it's the chance to really go into detail about what makes them suited to a particular course over and above any of the other applicants that are applying. There is one personal statement for all choices. So what that means is that you can't write, for example, a personal statement for one university or one course and then change it for another one. It has to be the same. So where it is possible to apply for separate courses, your personal statement will remain the same. So it's something to think very carefully about. You will have a maximum of 4,000 characters or 47 lines, and a minimum of 1,000 characters. Now, within the UCAS website and the application form, there is no spell check. So my advice has been, and will always be, please complete your personal statement on Word or a document that has spell check capacity, because if you do not do that and do it straight into UCAS, you will find that if you do make a mistake, that could be picked up by an admissions dean or an admissions tutor, and therefore it could discredit part of your personal statement. So please be very careful of that. Now, obviously, you will be writing many drafts, so I'm sure that will be picked up by the sixth form team anyway. And there is no formatting. So, for example, when you do a full stop and press a space bar, it won't automatically do a capital letter. So that's again something that you need to consider. So, personal statement. How does it work? How does it look? So you need to include your motivation. So what are the motives that you have for the subject that you're studying? What interests you about that particular subject? Why do you enjoy it so much? Is it because of something that you've done in school, or is it because of an extracurricular experience that you may have had? What's unique about the subject? What are the big issues in the subject? For example, as a geographer, I constantly talk about the contemporary issues that we're facing, considering sustainability and climate change. And that is something that, if you are interested in something that is happening at the moment, then please, feel free to talk about that within your personal statement and make it specific as well. Why do you want to study the subject at degree level? What are the parts of this subject that you are most excited about? And can the subject facilitate your future plans and ambitions? Do you have any experience or work experience that have led you towards studying this degree and therefore going on to a particular career? Now, because you're applying for multiple universities, please keep the motives for your specific course more general, because it may be that you're applying to one university for a combined honours and 1 university for singles. So please make sure that it's broad in terms of the subject discipline. And avoid using specific university course titles. This can be disadvantageous for some universities. If they see that you're more geared up to one university than the other, they may automatically say, well, this person doesn't want to study with us, so we will decline their application. And then talk about your skills. And now this is something that I think over lockdown, so many of you have done so well at. And I think it has been a bit of a silver cloud over what's been quite a difficult time, where many people have been able to do things that ultimately they wouldn't have done otherwise. So introduce the skills that you are good at and experience that show that your potential, that show your potential and highlights the passion for the subject. Highlights and pick out any key skills that the course description requests. Have you got good leadership, for example? Have you done a Duke of Edinburgh Awards in which you've exhibited some of these key skills? Teamwork, analytics, ensure that these skills are on your application. And then talk about your experience and achievements, and this can be a great way to prove your skills. Some of you may be invited to interviews at particular institutions, and if you talk about these skills and experiences in your personal statement, they may well pick them up and talk to you about them in these interviews. So please talk about the current studies and work experience and any extracurricular activities or clubs or societies that you are a part of, and any school responsibilities that you have. Many of you may have been prefects in Year 11 or in your previous schools, and these are just kind of classic examples of where you can write about these. Any achievements that can refer to any awards or competitions that you have won, as well as personal development and progress and academic achievements that you have also won. And this is also a good opportunity to show that you're motivated and continuously trying to learn and have a strong work ethic. And I think universities want to see that you can work independently. The autonomy that you get over your own studying is far removed from where you are in sixth form. So I think it's really important to show that you can do that before you even arrive there. And then give evidence of any additional reading around the subject that can also show a passion for the subject that you want to study. And again, it's been a great opportunity during the past year or so for that to happen. And I think moving forward, if you are aware of things that you need to supplement and enhance a personal statement, then please make sure that you are going above and beyond. And a lot of universities do call it supercurricular over extracurricular, and that is what they are looking for. So writing your personal statement, a couple of tips that you should be aware of. Please plan it. Don't just go gung-ho into writing your personal statement without having a plan. We will look in more depth in your tutor sessions over the coming months at exactly how to structure this, but please do plan it and write in a very formal yet enthusiastic tone. Keep it concise. Avoid using anything too complex or confusing. Write several attempts and drafts. Very few people will send off their first draft of their personal statement. It just doesn't work. It needs to be looked at, it needs to be reviewed, and it's something that we are, as a sixth form, very well equipped to doing. Excuse me. Ask people that you trust for their feedback. Now that can be your parents, it can be one of your brothers or sisters if they've been to university before, but it can also be myself, Mr. Ware, Mrs. Boyd, the management team within the sixth form, and your classroom teachers as well. Please do check punctuation and grammar. Please do it on Word. And then you can copy it into UCAS, the UCAS portal at the end of that process. And as I said, ensure that you have a logical structure, and we'll talk a little bit about the structure that you need to use in a second. So a couple of do's. We recently worked with LSE, London School of Economics, and they came into the school and they gave us some really useful advice. So I don't apologise for picking a few of the things that they recommended out from their presentation, and I'm going to share those with you now. So please make sure that you are writing a unique, original and convincing personal statement. As we said before, be enthusiastic and be positive. Present yourself as a well-rounded individual. Show that you're hardworking and you're willing to learn. Use motives and skills that are aligned with the course description. Please provide evidence of a wide level of engagement with the subject area. provide evidence of academic interests and academic experience, as well as the extracurricular. And as I just alluded to, LSE, they recommend the 80-20 split. So 80% to do with academics and course-related content, and then your 20% to do with anything to do with extracurricular activities towards the end. And I think that's really, really important, particularly those of you who are aspiring to the kind of Oxbridge Russell Group and top institution universities. Please make sure that you follow that format. And then things to avoid: try not to use cliches, try not to use humour. Try not to go into some kind of personal crusade about something. And if it's, if you're going into a debating subject or a subject that requires you to evaluate things, that's absolutely fine. But ultimately, they don't want to see you going into a crusade about something within your personal statement. It's not the forum to do that. Do not lie. As I said to you before, if you're invited to interview, they will pick apart your personal statement and ask you about things that you've written. Please feel free to use, please do not feel that you have to use elaborate language. Forget to proofread your work. Do not use specific university names or course titles, or negative comments or poor excuses. Do not plagiarise or copy, and do not rush your personal statement. It is very important that you do not do that. We'll come to deadlines shortly, but those of you who hand your personal statement into myself or Mr. Ware or Mrs. Boyd the day before the deadline will unfortunately find that you do not get to write the number of drafts that will make it as successful or as effective as it could possibly be. So please make sure you don't rush it, you plan it, you give it some time, you give it some thought. We've got plenty of time over the summer holidays to start looking at it and working out how you're going to write it. So please make sure that that is something that you hold right at the front of your memory. So how do the universities make the decisions? Well, ultimately it will come down to three criteria: the personal statement, your qualifications, and the reference from the school. But some universities, and we'll go into this in a minute, may ask for certain admissions tests, they may ask for an interview, or they may ask for a portfolio or an audition. And then when they have reviewed these criteria, you will be given one of three decisions: an unconditional offer, which means that regardless of the grades that you get, you'll be accepted into that university come the September, October, when you have applied for. You'll be given a conditional offer, which means that you will have to achieve certain grades to get there, or you will be unsuccessful. How do you know whether you've been accepted or not into a university? Well, that comes down to the UCAS website, and we use something called TRAC, or tracking applications. Now, when you register for UCAS, this will all become very clear, and you will see on your dashboard exactly how to do this. But TRAC allows you to follow the progress of your applications 24/7. You can see your choices and the personal information that you've used to apply. You can view the offers that you've got, and you can reply to the offers online. In TRAC, you can hold up to 2 offers. Now, these offers take 2 forms. You can either have a firm offer, which is the one that you absolutely want to go to. If you meet the conditions of the offer, that is where you will be placed, or your insurance. So, in the event of you not quite making the grade requirements or meeting the conditions of the offer for your firm choice, you will then be accepted into the insurance choice, provided that you meet the conditions of their offer as well. Now, there are a few other options that have recently been added to the kind of UCAS repertoire. We also have UCAS Extra. Now, if you haven't had, you've used all 5 choices and had no offers by the 25th of February, and this will be next academic year, then Extra will add some choices for consideration, and you will get 1 at a time. Now, this is purely based on the availability of courses. So obviously it won't be your first choices, but it will give you the opportunity to see what other choices are out there and what other universities are giving you an offer, are able to offer places for consideration at that time. You then have clearing, which opens from the 5th of July to the 19th of October. You guys will get your results in August 2022, and that is when you will be eligible for clearing. And clearing is what places are available on the day that the results come out, because we know that universities often offer more places than are actually available, because they know that people sit on extra offers, they decide that they don't want to go, or unfortunately they don't necessarily meet the conditions of those offers. So they will start finding vacancies from July, and they will add them in track on your clearing, on the clearing part of your UCAS application. And then finally, there is adjustments. Now, this is if you exceed your expectations, and despite the fact that you have affirmed a choice, you've got better grades than you thought you would, and you want to go to a university or do a course that requires greater grade expectations, then this is an opportunity for you to register, and then you can look at courses that are available with higher grade expectations, and then you can consider those universities if that is something that you wish to do. And these are available for up to 5 days in August after you get your results. So it's a very, very short and sharp window there. But again, it's another thing that you can use if, for example, things go slightly differently, you know, good or bad from what you were expecting. So in terms of the 2022 entry, which is when the current Year 12 will be looking to apply. From last week before last, the undergraduate apply has opened. And so from now, you are able to register on UCAS. This is done purely by you. The registration side of things is done purely by the individual. It's not done by the school. The important thing to remember is that to register with the school, you need to make sure that you are using the buzzword case sensitive, capital K, Kingsdale 22, no space between Kingsdale and 22. But you will be invited to put that in, as I said, when you register. From the 8th of September, so just after the summer holidays, this is the first day for receipt of all the completed applications. So you can't actually apply before then. You can complete the applications, but you can't actually send them off. And then we've got the 15th of October. Now, I'm going to go into a bit more depth of that in a minute, but there are 2 deadlines. There is a deadline for Oxbridge and any medicine, veterinary and dentistry courses, and there is then a deadline for all the other courses, which is slightly different. So you have the 15th of October for those and the 15th of January, and all those deadlines are at 6 o'clock in the evening. You've then got UCAS Extra opening in February, and then finally the 30th of June is the last date for applications before clearing. I will just add that equal consideration applications can only be accepted for the 2022 entry from Year 12 students going into Year 13 from the 15th of October and the 15th of January. So if you get your applications in after those deadlines, it may be that you are not given equal consideration. So the universities, what is right for you? What are you going to choose? I think it's really, really important, and it's a real shame that unfortunately you've not been able to necessarily go out there and see as many universities face to face as you possibly can. But things that work for people and things that people are looking out for. What's the style of the university? Are you looking for a traditional university with focus on a particular subjects or a particular course base? Are you looking for a more modern, new university? Are you looking for Russell Group? Are you looking for Oxbridge? Are you looking for a university or a college with a greater focus on vocational courses? Where do you want to go? Do you want to go to a city university? You've all grown up in a big city. Or do you want to go somewhere with a slightly smaller rural feel? What size of university do you want to go to? Large universities can have, you know, upwards of 20,000 students. And although you go to a very big secondary school, that would make you a very small fish in a very big pond. Whereas some of the smallest universities, you know, have only a few thousand. Culture and facilities. Now, this is influenced by a range of factors, the diversity of the students that attend, what the towns and cities are like in terms of the culture and facilities that they are able to offer. And then looking at what the graduates do. So, and this I think is really, really important. Look at what the destinations are of the graduates that leave the university. What kind of jobs that they go into, what kind of starting salaries do they begin on? You know, what companies are they working for? It's a really, really interesting thing to find out. So please do look at the jobs and the companies and you know, those factors that ultimately you'll be considering when you go to university anyway. And where do they go on to? Look at the tuition fees. They do vary between providers. So check those out very, very carefully, and check if there are any scholarships or bursaries that may be applicable to you. And that moves us on to living costs as well. What's the accommodation like? Certainly if you're going to live in student accommodation in London, it can be more than twice as much as other parts of the United Kingdom. So think about that very, very carefully, as well as the transport and the food costs. That can vary enormously as well. Entry requirements. Now, a lot of you have been speaking to us over the course of the last few weeks about your concerns and about entry requirements, and how do you kind of know what kind of courses to apply for. I think ultimately, and we have this kind of mantra as a school, we want you to be aspirational, but we want you to be realistic. We don't want to set you up to applying for these places that aren't necessarily within your reach, but we don't want you to not necessarily think that you can't. So please do take advice very, very carefully from your teachers. They will offer you predicted grades that will be grounded upon the data that they have from previous assessments. Now, you've recently done one, you're going to be doing one fairly soon. They'll also be looking at your GCSE grades as well. Entry requirements vary massively between courses and universities. So make sure that you are choosing a suitable range between firm and insurance. For example, if your firm choice is Bristol University to study geography, that's 3 A's, and your insurance is Leeds University to study geography for 3 A's, that would be completely, that would be very silly, because it's the same. So if you don't make those requirements, then you're going to be putting all your eggs in one basket and ultimately failing to get to where you want to be. So make sure that you are looking very carefully at the entry requirements of the courses that you apply for. Research very carefully and see whether certain grades are required in certain subjects. Often universities require 2 facilitating subjects, and look very carefully at what those facilitating subjects are. For example, if you want to do maths at university, they will often say maths and further maths would be one of your entry requirements, because further maths isn't necessarily seen as a facilitating subject. But it's important to look very, very carefully at that. So be very mindful. And some offers will be set according to the UCAS tariff points, and I've just put those below here. So most of your university offers will be based on your grades, for example, 3 A's or 3 B's. But some of your university offers will come in points. So it's very important to just work out how many points each grade is worth. And obviously, as I said, this is recorded, and so this will be available for you guys to see at a later date if you are applying for a course that is looking at points and not grades. And I just want to spend a few minutes now just talking about the Oxbridge Medicine, Veterinary Science and Dentistry applications, because these are slightly more nuanced than some of the other applications. And so if you are looking towards some of these institutions or courses, then it's really important that you know that there are slightly different criteria that you need to consider. So you must demonstrate that you've met the following criteria in your application for these courses. Obviously, academic ability and potential, and that will start at your GCSEs. So if you're not sure whether the GCSE grades that you have got will facilitate an application towards any of these courses or universities, please do come and talk to us. Do you show the skills and motivation to go beyond what is required for the current studies? For example, any evidence that you can study independently? Are you willing to embrace new ideas? Have you gone above and beyond towards the supercurricular and exploring and discussing ideas and opinions in a very logical and considered way? And finally, self-discipline. It's very important, as you need to manage your time well. We do support you and we'll do everything that we can. But if you arrive at an interview and you aren't able to talk about some of the ideas and opinions that you have, or able to demonstrate self-discipline, it unfortunately will be, it will kind of ring alarm bells with these courses and universities. Now, with these courses and universities, many of you will need to take separate admissions tests. Now, for Oxford and Cambridge, and I've linked these, and I'll share this PowerPoint at the end on MS Teams so that your sons and daughters can show you and access them. But Oxford and Cambridge have their own admissions tests for particular subjects, and these will often require a minimum grade offer of 2 A stars and an A for the science subjects, including economics and mathematics, and an A star and 2 A's for the social sciences. And medical schools, veterinary science, dentistry, particularly medical schools, will require you to take one of 2 admissions tests, either the UCAT or the BMAT, depending on where you're applying. And more information about that can be found on the link to Medic Portal below. And I've just put the fact that many will look at work experience as a facilitator to offering you a place, and you will indicate that as part of your personal statement. I think leniency is certainly being adhered to at this point, and many universities are being slightly more relaxed in terms of the amount of work experience. Sorry, for kind of clinical courses are being very much more relaxed in terms of the amount of work experience that is required. But I would say it's worth contacting the individual universities to see what their current policy is and how work experience will enhance your application. So aside from those, what courses do you think are going to be right for you? Well, every single university course, if it's regardless of its content, regardless of its name, will have a different course content. So look very carefully at the course cover. What does it cover? Engineering at one university might be completely different to engineering at another university. So they may, courses with the same title may be very different. Look carefully at the core course content and the range of optional studies and modules available. In your first year at university, it's highly likely that most of you and your peers will study some of, if not all of the same course content. However, you are able to become more specific in year 2 and 3, so look very carefully at that. Which modules do you think are the most interesting and relevant to your career aspirations? See if the course or university or college is offering any internships or placements or year abroads to that, further enhance any employment or experience opportunities that you have in the future. And how is the course taught? Is it mainly lectures? Is it independent seminars? Is it structured teaching? Is it independent independent research? How many contact hours do you have a week? That varies massively from course to course, and you might be somebody that works much better independently, so might be looking at the course with less contact hours, or you might be somebody that actually likes to have that face-to-face structure, teaching with lecturers. So bear that in mind. And again, if there are questions that you have, my advice is to contact the individual universities and look at how it's assessed and the weighting on the different modules and the different years. And all that information can be found on the university website. I don't know at this point if it's worth stopping and looking for any questions, Mr. Ware. I can't see that there are.
Hello there. We've had quite a few questions, but hopefully I've been able to answer them in the chat. So please do keep those questions coming. We're just to remind people that we will make sure that these resources are made available after this evening. I've had a few questions about that, but otherwise I think, sir, you've covered what's been delivered so far. Okay,
perfect. So Mr. Ware, I'm going to hand over to you and reshare the screen, and Mr. Ware is going to talk a little bit about student finance, apprenticeships, conservatoires and studying abroad. Over to you, Mr. Ware.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, sir. So what the school really likes to consider and appreciate is that university is not necessarily the right option for everybody. There are lots and lots of different avenues that people can choose to take. And as Mr. Unwin alluded to there, things like music conservatoires, taking apprenticeships, even studying abroad, those will be things that we strongly encourage students to consider just so they get the best tailored experience for themselves after Kingsdale. Now, when we talk about providing for yourself during a university application, it is worth noting, even at this early stage, although student finance is determined quite a little bit later down the line when it comes to this process. So actually the deadline for student finance for our students this year was May 21st. So you've got about a year before student finance becomes a very, very, very significant issue. But to that end, it's worth just noting what is involved, or what's involved when it comes to applying for university. What can you expect to be responsible for financially during this process? Now, the first thing I think Mr. Unwin already spoke about is UCAS isn't free. It does cost money in order for the administration to take place. So £26 is the typical fee that people pay because people want to apply for more than one university. So if you're looking to apply for 5 courses, then it will cost you £26 in order to apply it via UCAS. Later on down the line, when it comes to university itself, there are broadly speaking 2 main things that you have to consider. Tuition fees, and tuition fees, whilst they do range, they do vary according to the institution. Typically, you can expect to pay about £9,200 a year when it comes to your tuition fees. And alongside that, living costs as well. So students often travel away in order to attend university, which means that they'll be looking for halls of residence in the first year perhaps, and then in second and third years they'll need to look at properties in order to rent from, student renting opportunities that they can pursue, and that can be find support for rather through many of the government's initiatives. And I think when we talk about money, there's always a little bit of a shock because university, it does cost a lot of money. There is a lot to consider there, but thankfully the system, in order to help support students through that, is really quite comprehensive. And the student finance system is something which warrants significant consideration when you are thinking about how best to pay for university. Now, presently, we have a student loan-based system. So it's now the case that if you are looking to apply for student finance, you will be taking out a loan as opposed to a grant. Those loans come in 2 different formats. We've got the tuition fee loan, which will be paid directly to the university. And then you've got your maintenance loan, which will be for your living costs, and that will go directly into the student's bank account. The one thing I think is always really important to say is that if you are looking to take out student finance, parents and carers, you are not responsible for student finance. It is the student who is responsible. So the debt that they incur as a result of student finance is their debt. It doesn't transfer onto you. Similarly, though, outside of loans, there are many opportunities. It might be through your local authority or through the university themselves, where you can get scholarships and bursaries. So in essence, that is free money. You may have to apply, you might have to perform complete an application explaining why you warrant that bursary, but that is money which you will not have to pay back. It's worth noting, if we have any EU nationals or any people who aren't UK nationals, whilst money is available to these people, there are certain restrictions and certain amendments that need to be made to the student finance process in order to go through via Student Finance England. So can I just ask you to change? Thank you. So if we talk about our typical yearly cost, most universities across the UK charge £9,250, as I said. This increases in line with inflation. As it stands, we're not expecting an increase, but so you can expect £9,250. We will have a student finance chat a little ways down the line in about March of next year, where if any changes have been made there, we will make sure that you know. Tuition fees are not paid upfront by the student, so it's not the case that the student is expected to pay the tuition fee and then they get the money back from Student Finance. As we said earlier, the money from Student Finance England goes directly to the institution to pay for it. Living costs, like accommodation, food, books, travel, this is the thing where you do not necessarily get a flat fee. This will change depending on where you study and depending on whether or not you require accommodation. Furthermore, it will be affected by the household income of the parents or carers of that student. Okay, so there is a big range when it comes to how much of a maintenance loan you can take out. Typically ranges £7,500 to £14,500 a year. I think we've got an example on the next slide, which hopefully will clarify it a little bit more. Oh, it might be the next slide there. So let's just talk about student finance. Sorry, sir. Student Finance England. So this is where you apply for student finance. You do not apply for student finance via UCAS. There will be an element on UCAS where you need to put in some information which will help you apply for student finance, but it is not UCAS that is responsible for student finance themselves. It is a government body, which is Student Finance England. You do one application. That application covers your tuition fee loan, your maintenance loan. It gives you a core amount and any additional bits that you deserve depending on your household income. There is no money to pay up front, and I think that's something which is really important to impress. So it is not the case that once you take out this loan, as soon as you are finished with university, there is a direct expectation that you start paying it back. Neither is there an expectation that you start paying it back whilst you are at university. Okay, what happens from Student Finance England, and I think one of the best ways to kind of understand student loans is very much like a tax on education. So as soon as you start earning a certain amount of money, then your student loan payments start to kick in. So if you dip under that amount, you will stop paying student loans back for a while. If you start to earn more and more money, then the amount that you pay back will go up and up. Okay, so it is, as loans go, a very manageable procedure. For courses that start in September, October, it says 31st of May. This year is a little bit earlier, but it is the May month where you need to apply by in order to get into get student finance in time for your first year. As I said, repaying the loan is the student's responsibility. So once they have graduated and once they have started to earn a certain amount, then it will be their responsibility to pay it back. And something that we really do like to stress is student loans are not the only avenue of income when it comes to university. As I say, the institutions will have support for students who might come from low income backgrounds. Similarly, students who have performed exceptionally well, maybe due scholarships, and other places can do that as well. You'll have charity organisations that can help provide student finance as well, and also your local authority, things like the Southwark Scholarship. That's another avenue when it comes to student finance. So if I could get the next slide, thank you. So, as we say, how much can you get? It's worth noting that this really does depend on a number of factors, and the three factors that are worth considering here, or worth remembering, are parents or carers' income, the location of the university, and the cost of tuition. Okay, you will only get as much money for tuition as the institution is requesting. So if the institution has maximised the amount that they can charge for tuition, which is £9,250, then £9,250 will be paid. If for whatever reason the tuition fees are slightly less, it's not the case that you can request the maximum and keep the difference for maintenance. Okay, the tuition fee element goes directly to the institution. However, there are a number of things which might impact your maintenance loan. So as we said, the first thing, the income of your household. If you are earning slightly, if your household is earning slightly more, then you will be entitled to less of a maintenance loan. If you are studying in London, then typically you are entitled to more of a maintenance loan because the living costs in London are slightly higher. Okay, so there are lots of kind of moving parts there. So one of the things that you want to consider when you're thinking about student finance, thinking about how much is coming into the household presently, and furthermore, where you are planning on studying. Because if you're in London, then living costs are slightly higher. You will be allocated, if you successfully apply, a little bit more than someone who might be studying at like Newcastle. Next slide, please, sir. Fantastic. So as I said at the beginning, university is not for everyone, and I think it's really important to impress upon the people here that there are other options should you so wish, and one of those other options is apprenticeships. Now, when we talk about apprenticeships, one of the biggest differences between an apprenticeship and a university course is that typically apprenticeships, one, involve an employment element. So apprenticeships you will typically be paid for whilst you are learning, so you get paid while learning on the job, and also they are usually co-backed by a company or organisation. So instead of just being being responsible to an institution like the University of Bristol, you may take out an apprenticeship in accountancy with one of the big accounting firms like KPMG, who might run it in conjunction with a university. There are lots of different types of apprenticeships, and I do think UCAS is a really good resource to explore these apprenticeships a little bit further. But there are some apprenticeships which we call higher apprenticeships, which are technically level 4, which means they're a step just beyond A level. So in order to take a higher apprenticeship, you will be expected to have level 3 qualifications, i.e. A levels. And then you have degree apprenticeships, and degree apprenticeships have the added bonus of, as well as earning on the job, that you may come out with a bachelor and undergraduate degree as well. Okay, so we've had some students in the past consider apprenticeships there, that if you're particularly keen on getting into the world of work quite soon, then apprenticeships might be a really happy medium for you, because they'll give you that revenue stream in terms of employment. But also, if you're doing a degree apprenticeship, then you may well come out with a degree as well. So some things to consider there as well. So if we go to the next slide, that'd be great. Thank you. Music and art conservatoires are also a consideration. I saw on the chat whilst I was manning the Q&A that a lot of people spoke about art foundations. So I'll just very quickly discuss the nature of art foundation courses. Art foundation courses are essentially pre-degree courses. Okay, so if you take an art foundation course, it's usually with the expectation that you're going to go on to take an art degree, but that's not necessary. Furthermore, if you take an art foundation course the year after year 13, so if you're a year 14 technically, then art foundation courses do not cost you money. You receive free education up until the age of 19 in that regard. Okay, so that's a lot. That's one of the reasons that a lot of students might consider it, because it's another year of free education. They do not typically require you to go through UCAS in order to apply for them. It's worth noting that if you so wish, you can apply for universities via UCAS and apply for art foundation courses if you're undecided as to what it is that you want to do, and your art foundation course will not count as one of the 5 choices. But it is a different system. It will require a different personal statement, a different reference, and usually requires a portfolio to be put together as well. In terms of music and art conservatoires, which are degree level institutions, then you will be able to apply usually via UCAS. The dates for those conservatoires, though, do change. They're usually a little bit earlier than the standard application for UCAS. So for most candidates, it's the 15th of January, which is the big date to consider. But with music and art conservatoires, it can be as early as September, October. So if you're thinking about music and art conservatoires as an option, it's well worth checking what the dates are with those. They're a little bit of a kind of moving feast there, so there's no hard and fast rule. Different institutions have different dates, so please do make sure you check for particular institutions. And you do follow, broadly speaking, the same process. So there is a personal statement. One of the big differences with music conservatoires is that you're expected to produce 2 references, one which is a scholastic reference, so the school will provide a reference, and the other one which is a performance reference. So your performance as a musician is something that needs to be considered as well. When it comes to the process, like with Oxbridge and with some other universities, you may have interviews that need to be attended. For art, there's typically the expectation that a portfolio is submitted together with a personal statement and school reference. And for music, you will usually be expected to perform an audition in the discipline of your choice too. Okay, so there are a few extra hurdles to jump through if you're looking to pursue those lines of study. Next slide, please, sir. Okay, so applying abroad. Now, applying abroad, there may be some people who are considering application abroad. Unfortunately, there's been a little bit of a kind of hurdle thrown in front of you if you're looking to apply for to Europe, because the Erasmus scheme is starting to wind up, which was an opportunity for students to study here and then go abroad for a year or 2. That's going to be replaced by the Turing scheme, which is still very much in its infancy, but that is claiming that it will give students an opportunity to study in places like Australia, New Zealand and the like. There are some students who have discussed or have kind of suggested that they would like to consider America as a destination. And just some very quick takeaways early on in that process. The first thing is that you do not use UCAS in order to apply to an American college. Okay, instead you apply to American colleges separately. So if you want to apply for Harvard or Yale, you'll be expected to make an application directly to Harvard and directly to Yale. It's worth noting that over 600 US institutions use something called the Common Application Form, which is kind of a sort of cousin to UCAS, if you will, in as much as you're inputting one set of data and it can be sent to lots and lots of different institutions. The one thing that makes America a little bit of a challenge is, unlike that kind of flat deadline of the 15th of July, universities will have their own application deadlines, fees and requirements. The one thing that needs to be considered is that Student Finance England cannot be used in order to apply to American universities. So in order to apply to an American university, you need to consider other forms or other avenues of revenue in order to make that application. Now, the one thing I will say, hopefully so as not to have deterred you, is that the American system of scholarship is far more extensive than it is in the United Kingdom. And there are a number of scholarships that are available to students irrespective of their geographical location. So there are plenty of opportunities that students can pursue in order to be financially supported when it comes to application to America. Offers, another big difference, it says offers of admission there aren't specifically conditional. So one of the things that tends to happen when you get a UCAS response from UCAS is that a university will give you what's called a conditional offer. They will say that you have a place at the institution dependent on the achievement of certain grades, for example, AAB. Usually with American institutions, once they've considered your application, you have the place. It's not always the case, but there will be no specification of required grades. There's a slightly earlier date, which is an open date. Usually the finish for applications, again, is around about that Oxbridge date, October, November. Most university applications open online on the 1st of August. One of the big distinctions when it comes to American applications is that you are often required to sit the SATs or the ACTs, which is kind of like an admission entrance exam. We are, as a school, we are an ACT centre, so that can be sat at the school. But those, if you are thinking about studying in America, you want to be looking to apply for your SATs or your ACTs during the summer months. Okay, next slide, please, sir. And I think I'm going to hand over to you.
I think that's back to me. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ware, for that. That's absolutely wonderful. I'm just going to run through a couple of questions that have come up on the chat. First, about the interest on student loans. It depends on the pay bracket that you are in once you reach a threshold of about £350 a week. So once you start earning a certain amount of money, you will then pay a certain amount of interest on your student loan. So it's worth looking at that. In terms of teacher predictions will be based on a combination of the assessment grades, assessments that have been running throughout the year, GCSE grades and the teacher judgment. We obviously want to be as aspirational as we can realistically be when it comes to this. So these will be submitted to the sixth form management team at the start of next academic year, and we will obviously inform students and parents. What I would say is that if you are keen to kind of find out where you are at the moment, please do talk to your individual teachers, and they will be able to have a fairly candid discussion with you about that. In terms of work experience, we're looking to implement a virtual work experience week in September. We are currently not in a position, as many schools are not in as well, to be able to run our traditional work experience kind of sessions and getting students off to various companies. But we do look to run something at the start of next academic year, and we will keep you abreast of any developments as and when they come in. And contextual offers, yes, absolutely. Kingsdale does satisfy a contextual offer institution, and many universities do use that. For example, Bristol. Please, you will have to research the individual universities that do. Not everybody does, but there are some top institutions that do offer a contextual agreement, and what that means for is that it may be that your offer is slightly reduced by 1 grade, for example, AAB to ABB, if that is if you are given an offer from that university. So before we kind of finish up and take a few final questions for the evening, I just want to talk to you kind of about how you as parents can now support your children. Research is a massively important thing, and UCAS, the UCAS Hub has evolved massively over the last 18 months, 2 years, to being actually probably what is the kind of the leader in terms of researching courses, apprenticeships. There's videos, there's student experiences, there's blogs, there are job profiles from professionals and career options. So there's so much stuff that you can use it for. But we've also subscribed to a program called UniFrog, which is something that we've been speaking very openly about with your children, with the students over the last 6 to 8 months. What I would say is massively important, though, is that in this time you are doing as many virtual university open days as you possibly can. Get a feel for what's going on. Ultimately, we're still not in a position where these days can run in person, but it is really important to at least get a feel for what each institution and course is actually like. So UniFrog is kind of our one-stop shop for the where students can explore what their interests are, and it kind of differs from UCAS in the fact that there are a few more services and functions that you can use on UniFrog that may help enhance an application. Not only can you start drafting personal statements, and you can start looking at exemplar personal statements, but you can start to explore key interests, career paths, apprenticeship goals. Also, you start to look at competencies, and you can look at things like MOOCs, massive open online courses, to again supplement your application. So what you can do is you can, for example, if you're going to if you want to study law, you can look at three kind of three things. You can input your predicted grades for a law course, and it will come up with 3 different criteria. An aspirational criteria, which would be something that if you achieved above and beyond that, where you would be offered. For example, the one that you can see on the screen here is for Cambridge and for King's. You can look at the solid one, which is kind of in line with your predicted grades, and you can look at the safe one, which may be slightly more appropriate for your insurance university offer. And so what's happened is we have emailed the students the link to their school email addresses, so please make sure that they're checking that through. Many of them have started this process already. Please click through the link and follow the instructions and create your memorable password, and make a note of that, because it is a program that we use regularly, not only in tutor time, we talk about it in assemblies, and again it's something that you can do at home to help support this process, which as I said to you right at the start of this session, is going to go very, very, very quickly. And in terms of the child, what should they be doing now? Lots and lots of research into these courses, looking at the super and extracurricular activities that they can do to set them apart from any competition that they may have with these applications. Work experience, which, as I said, as I alluded to, we'll be looking at remotely in September. But if there is anything that they can do in person, if there are people that they know that they can work with, please do feel free to organise that, and we can hopefully. You can hopefully do that over the summer. Go beyond the syllabus. Make sure you're looking at things like MOOCs, those massive open online courses. But ultimately, don't forget the year's studies. You know, it is really important that, you know, as one of the 3 most important criteria, the studies and the academic achievement that the students go towards these universities with is going to be hugely important for their application. So, just a kind of summary from that, just make sure that the research is something that's at the forefront, and there is a link there, ucas.com/parents, in terms of how you can help. Make sure that you're signing up for as many UCAS open days and updates via email so that you can see what's going on, and be proactive. Don't expect the school to do everything. We do, offer lots and lots of, extra talks and extra sessions to help support their applications. But those the ones that are most successful are the ones that go above and beyond and are proactive. There are some links here in terms of sources of information, and as I said to you at the start, I will make sure that this is shared with you so that you can see these links. And thought I'd just finish with just a little timeline to help with some of the questions again that we've had. So firstly, summer term at the moment, 2021. The key message is to ensure that you're researching into courses, personal statements, first drafts, and getting those to your tutors, any teachers that you want to support that, or certainly myself, to have a look through and read. You will have a set of progression exams. Now, these progression exams, as I've spoken to you about before, will be taking place between the 5th and the 12th of July. This again will be an opportunity, and you'll be receiving information at the end of this week about the study content, so please do not worry, so you get a chance to study over half term. This will be an opportunity to show your teachers what you do know, not what you do not know. This will not be a chance for teachers to try and catch you out. That is not what these are about. This is about supporting you in getting the best possible groundwork in before excuse me, the exams next summer. And then a bit about the deadlines. So obviously the school deadline, as a question alluded to, is slightly different to the UCAS deadline. It's because we want to make sure that we can quality assure all of the applications for university, and obviously for October the 1st is for the Oxbridge medicine, dentistry and veterinary applications. The UCAS deadline, as we said before, is the 15th of October, regardless of what day of the week that falls, and it's at 6 o'clock in the evening. You will then have an examination week in October, starting Monday, October the 20th, and there will be a parents' evening and full school report to follow. So those students who are not looking towards the first deadline will get a really good opportunity to kind of see where they are and hopefully cement their applications there and then. The second set of UCAS application deadlines for the school is January the 3rd, and obviously the deadline then is the 15th at 6 o'clock, and you'll have a second examination week on February the 9th. Again, this is the kind of final chance for you guys to be assessed to see what you need to do before your A-level examination starts in May 2022. So before I finish, I'd just like to first of all thank you very much for coming this evening. I don't know if there are any last questions, Mr. Ware, that you can see that may need addressing before we finish.
Yeah, there was a question there which just might be worth sharing with the group, which was about deferred entry. Yeah. So just as a quick insight into deferred entry, for some students, there's a consideration of taking a gap year or taking a year in employment. What you can do is defer your entry for the year after you finish year 13. So in the case of deferred entry, you would still be applying in this school cycle, so you'd be applying in 2021, 2022, but you would be looking to start university from September 2023. Now, in order to do that, the process is relatively simple, because when you're applying for UCAS, there's a little button that you click which says deferred entry. You can also choose to defer entry for certain institutions and not for others. So if you're kind of umming and ahhing as to whether you want to defer, the one thing I would say, and the one thing that should be considered, is when you defer your entry, you are no longer kind of competing against the students who are applying for this this cycle. So it may affect your chances of success if you choose to defer entry. There may be different criteria that are required. Similarly, deferring entry for Oxbridge or medical applications is typically, it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's typically not something that's done. There is an expectation that when you apply for those institutions that you are going to attend the next year, although I have seen cases where deferred entry has been accepted in particular situations. So hopefully that answers that question there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ware. And yeah, can I just say a final thank you to all of those questions that have come in. I will be ensuring that the presentation is posted and you're given the information on how to access that if you want to go back to it. The PowerPoint will be shared with the students on Teams, so any kind of links and things like that that you may have missed, please do go back and look at that over the coming weeks. But again, a massive thank you from myself, Mr. Ware, and the sixth form team for your attendance this evening, and have a wonderful rest of your evening, and look forward to seeing many of you very soon. Thank you.